Welcome to Women's Wealth, the podcast with me, Joanne. My mission is to educate, inspire, and empower you all to step into your own life of wealth. That feeling of being so rich in your mind, body, and soul. I'm so happy to have you here. Let's get straight into it. Hello, wealthy people. Welcome to another episode of Wealthy Women. And I have a beautiful, amazing guest with me today. I'm so happy that she's finally here. I have Jen with me today. She is also within the wellness industry, yoga teacher, life coach. And she's here today to share her story, her own personal development story from... I think we've all been there. The repeat of eat, sleep, rave, repeat every weekend, being stuck in that loop, to then transitioning to a life that's more full of clarity and stepping into a higher consciousness. So that big switch that a lot of us go through. So Jen's here today to share her story, how she did it, how she navigated through all of that. So welcome, Jen.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Jo, for having me.
Oh, no, you're welcome. I'm glad to have you here. And I love sharing these real life stories as well, because, I know a lot of my podcasts, I teach things and go through, but the ones where someone comes on, shares their story, they've made a life change, and it's a light at the end of the tunnel for someone who might be listening thinking, oh my God, that is me. So thank you for sharing. Let's just start from the beginning. So tell us a little bit about, where you're from, your background, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty.
Okay, fab. So, hi, I'm Jen, and I have been teaching yoga now for, I think it's been 7 years, almost 8 years. And I can truly say it was something that completely shifted my life for the better in such a huge way. I am in Scotland right now. I'm looking outside and it's very wet and windy. The joys. But yeah, so I teach yoga. I also have clients in terms of life coaching. It's something new that I've just started that I'm extremely passionate about, and actually kind of coincides with the yoga practice as well. And I mean, there's lots of little ins and outs that I do, but that's mostly like the main parts, yoga and life coaching.
And tell us a little bit about your health, your habits, the life before yoga. So 10 years ago.
Okay. Okay, so I think the thing that sticks out the most. So I was 21, 22. Well, Jo, I know you'll know from living in the UK. I feel like in the UK you start drinking at the age of like 12.
Yeah.
13. Do you know, like, even if it's a Smirnoff Ice, whereas, in the States and stuff, they start drinking like a lot later on. So don't get me wrong, I wasn't drinking loads of alcohol at the age of 12, but I just mean, there's that kind of, what path you're kind of going on. So I was about 21. I would either be going out to clubs, drinking. I mean, my goal when I used to go out was to be so drunk that I couldn't walk. Like, that was actually a goal I made for myself, which is ridiculous looking back now. If I wasn't at a club, I would be at a bar. I worked behind the bar as well. It was quite a quiet bar, like it was somewhere kind of more suburb. It wasn't in the city centre or anything, but I would, after work, I would have a drink. Mindset wise, to be honest, I was so, looking back, I can use the word numb. However, at the time, I would never have described myself as that. But looking back, I had numbed myself so much that I didn't actually realise that my mental state wasn't good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I completely resonate completely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily my mental state that I was working on. It was more, I was just kind of going about my day. I was working in a bar and I would work in the gym. And it was actually when I started to work in the gym that I actually stopped drinking as much. But then that kind of led me onto another path of drugs and things like that. So, you cut out the alcohol and then you go on to the substances. So then that carried on till about, I would say about 21, 22. And then, yes, something quite major happened. And it just dawned on me that I had to make a change or I was going to live a life that was just unhappy,
Yeah.
and that's unhappy mentally, physically. I knew I had to take myself out of where I was. So I'm in Glasgow, I'm in Scotland, and I just knew I had to get out. I didn't want to be with any, not because I didn't like my friends, I just didn't want to be in the environment that I was in. So I applied for Camp America. Have you heard of Camp America?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So for anyone that doesn't know, because once we were in America and we were talking, Gav and I were in America and we were talking to one of his clients who live in the States about Camp America, and they were like, I have no idea what that is. I was like, what? That's so weird. I know. So anyway, went and did Camp America, and it was at that point I got introduced to the law of attraction. I was living by myself. I had to fend for myself. I was looking after kids. So I had to step up. I had to mature. I was responsible for these kids. I did a bit of traveling afterwards. So I seen different cultures. I met loads of different people. And it was at that point, it just completely changed 100%.
I resonate with everything that you just said. And I think sometimes, like you say, you're born in Glasgow and you had to get away. It is where the place that we're born into sometimes can be the part of our not downfall, but we get stuck in these ways, and it does take something pivotal to pull us out. Because,
Yeah.
like you said, the age of I think 15, I might have had my first alcoholic drink. You're standing outside the shop waiting for someone. Can you go in, buy us some beer? That's where it starts. And I
Yeah.
think you're in that cycle. Before you know it, it's 10 years later and you've been doing the same thing every weekend with the same people, and you get stuck in that loop. And sometimes it does take, something big to happen that you're like, whoa, what am I doing? And
Yeah.
I know people still doing the same thing,
As
because
you were talking in my head, I was like, I mean, I still know people that still go out and do that. And there's no judgment on that whatsoever. Like, if that's what brings you joy, great. But it just wasn't bringing me joy. It was
yeah,
actually making my life worse, if anything.
yeah, and that's it. And I think you either stay with that, or you do have something happen and you're like, I want different than this. And
Yeah.
that can happen at any age. You might be listening to this now and thinking, oh my God, I've been trying to get out of this for so long. So how did you start sort of weaning your way? So you went to Camp America and you were introduced to the law of attraction. How were you introduced to that? Like what did you hear? What did you see?
So there was a girl who I was really close with, and she was reading a book, and I never really read books either, to be honest. I always said I'm not a reader, I don't really like books. But I think that was because people always introduced me to fiction. And I was like, that's not like, or like crime or those type of things. I was like, it's not really my thing. So I just assumed I wasn't a reader. And she was reading this book, and just to be polite, I was like, oh, so what are you reading? And she told me about it. And I just remember being so intrigued that the next time we were allowed, so you get a day off, a day and a half off a week. And I remember the day that I had off, I went straight to the mall and bought the two books, The Secret and The Power, because so this was 2011, so The Power must have just came out. And so I just read them at camp, and I'd never heard of it. I wasn't really, I've always been into like horoscopes and the stars, but it was never really a spiritual thing for me, or even a personal growth or personal development. I didn't even know what that was. So when I started to read these books, I don't know, something just inside me, I was just so intrigued. And so when I came home, I was telling all my friends, and I was like, but it was very much surface level law of attraction, like think good thoughts, good things are going to happen, that's not the case. But at this point, that's what I thought was the case. So I was like going to all my friends, and yeah, that was the whole turning point.
I feel like The Secret is like the first port of call. Like if you're going to go down that route, The Secret's the one that pulls you in
Yeah.
because it's the wow, what is this? And like you said, is it is very surface level. It's like the introduction, isn't it, to your life can
100%.
be try these things. And it does come under the umbrella of personal development, but I also feel like it's introducing you to a life of, I don't know, I'm going to use the word magic because that's what
Mm-hmm.
and we associate magic with magicians and, there's magic that we see on the TV. But I feel like once you have your eyes opened to this type of personal development, the spiritual world, it is magic. And you open yourself up to a new kind of magic, a new way of living, a new way of thinking. Is that is that the same as what happened for you?
100%. And like you say, I think it's that stepping stone where you actually learn what you give out, you get back. Because it did work in my life. It made me a more positive and kind of upbeat person. But the way it didn't work for me was more manifestation on a bigger level. Like, I would be like, okay, I'm going to think good thoughts. For the first, I think this is important. And I think a lot of your listeners probably are on their spiritual path already, or spiritual journey already. But for me, I found that at the very beginning, I was so in my head because I was complete, like I said, I was so numb to my mindset that I didn't know I was thinking negatively. I didn't realize I was doing all this to myself. So what it actually did, I think, has brought a lot of awareness to what it was I was actually putting out there. And then reframing those stories was the kind of challenging part, but that's
Yeah,
the journey.
yeah, it is. I feel the same for me as well. I think you don't realize we don't realize how negative we are in our own heads until someone says that, you'll be negative in your own head. And then you have to start catching those thoughts. And, that would be phase one. And I feel like sometimes people think with manifestation, it's, wish for something and think about it, have happy thoughts, and then you're going to open the front door and there's going to be a Ferrari there because that's what you're focused on. But it is a journey. And I think, like you said, lots of my listeners are on their spiritual journey. And I don't know if you feel the same, that there isn't actually a destination to get to, is there?
And even the day, and I know, do you know what's really funny? Because this keeps coming up, and I used to never want to see it because I felt like it was grim, whereas now I see it in a different perspective. But you're right, there's no destination, and the only destination that there is really is the same destination that we're all going to, you know? I feel like your journey is like, so you've got birth and you've got death. You're going to go from point A to point B regardless, but it's up to you and what path you want to take. So one path's going to lead you straight, it's going to take you all the way up here and all the way down here and up here and down here, and then eventually you're going to reach that destination. You can take a straight path, which is very mundane and,
Yeah.
secure, or you can take that path that's a little bit less travel, so that's why I say to everyone, especially on their spiritual journeys, it's not necessarily about looking at what someone else is doing. It's finding out what best suits you, because there's no right or wrong. It really is just different paths taking you to the same point,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, exactly. You don't get to a point and you get the certificate of you've passed your spiritual everything.
Imagine you
Because
did.
yeah,
That would be so funny.
I think if I got to that point, I'd be like, what do I do now?
Oh
Like
yeah,
what
well, exactly. Excellent point. Exactly.
yeah, I feel like the more you do, the more you find, or you'll find another book or you'll learn something new, and then you go, you focus on that for a while and it takes you to something else, and it's just this whole beauty of magic and just allowing yourself to enjoy the journey, because it becomes a lifestyle then, doesn't it? It's not just about putting crystals in your bra and meditating in the morning. It's the intention behind it and learning about intention and learning about your feelings. So other than the secret, what would you say your go-tos have been? So obviously they've probably changed. So we'll talk about current. What do you currently do now that is your like pinnacle that makes you feel good, that you feel like it brings in your manifestations, you're at ease? What are your go-tos right now?
Okay, so a lot of the stuff, even when you were talking about intention, a lot of this stuff I've been implementing only over the past kind of year and a half. So I actually had a major shift again. It was August 2022, because I remember it was my brother's birthday. Not my brother's birthday, it's my brother's wedding. And I remember being skint, and I mean skint to the point where I couldn't even give him like a wedding gift. And I was so what age? So about 31, 32. And I just remember thinking, how am I at this point again? Like how am I here? And I think there's loads of them throughout, so 2011, how many years ago was that?
13.
13 years ago. So I started this 13 years ago. Within those 13 years, there has been major shifts like that where it's just kind of came to me where I'm like, what the? Do you know what I mean? So that happened in August 2022. And I was like, do you know what? Like, this is it. This is up to me. If I want to create abundance, if I want to create that lifestyle that I've always dreamed of, if I want to impact people, something has to change because what I'm doing is not giving me what I want, if you know what I mean, in terms of the manifestation. And I realized it was a lot to do with internal work. And I realized from that, thinking it was a financial thing, that actually it was a self-love thing. So I dove a lot into self-love. That's when I came across Kim Meller, who Joe and I both know from Healy, Reagan Hillier. So they were the kind of the two mentors. And then through meeting you guys in Portugal and stuff, that was all they were all little insights that I had. So intention was something I never really did. I just did it because I thought I had to, whereas I find intention really important. So I make an intention every day. I've got a moon app. I've started working quite closely with the moon. So using Kirsty Gallagher. She does linear living. She's amazing. Um, I've bought her book. Her book is great. It's called Linear Living. But I've kind of been working with the stages of the moon and setting intention almost every day, depending on where the moon is and what sign it's in. I journal every single morning. That is non-negotiable. It can be. I used to find journaling really, really hard because I used to write down as if someone was going to read it. Does that make sense? So I wasn't actually writing my thoughts. I was writing a little bit of my thoughts and then I was kind of writing like what, just in case someone read it, like what they would want to hear. And so it was never like a flow. Whereas now I've put that aside. So I journal and I just let whatever it is come out onto paper. For me, journal prompts is a massive thing. I find it quite hard to just go straight into journaling. I do need a prompt. Meditation, breath work, yoga, that. And I'm talking, it's not like 6 hours of my morning where I spend doing this. I spend 15, 20 minutes doing a yoga flow, 10, 15 minutes doing breath work, meditation again, maybe 10 minutes, and then my journal, maybe another 10, 15 minutes. They're the kind of non-negotiables. But I think the biggest thing or the biggest tool for me is integrating all of these things into daily life and not just making it a morning ritual or an evening ritual, but throughout the whole day being aware, setting intentions, noticing certain stories, shifting those stories, and being compassionate. That's my biggest thing. Be compassionate and kind to yourself because the kinder we are to ourselves, the kinder we are to other people, and that will be a ripple effect. But also, you deserve kindness, you deserve love, you deserve compassion. And if you're not the first person to give it to yourself, then no one else is going to. So I think when you are navigating days and when you are journaling and you're meditating, you're doing yoga and things are coming up, just be kind, be understanding, be compassionate, and make the change if that's what's needed.
Yeah, and do you find that you talk to yourself a lot? Because I know I do.
All the time. I was like, I actually was doing, who was it? I can't remember who I was with, but I was like, if anyone looked at me right now, they would think I was nuts. I
They,
have conversations like, why are you angry? Oh, that was the trigger. Oh, where did that trigger come from? Oh, that was like 15 years ago. Things like that.
I often when I'm in the car, so I feel like the car is the place where you can do your
You
thinking.
love the car.
And do you know what I do now? Like I mostly listen to audiobooks. Although the other day I downloaded because I accidentally deleted all my Apple Music, so I'm having to start from scratch. So I downloaded some R&B from early 2000s. So I was having a really good sing song the other day. But I've found that sometimes I get in the car and I can drive for 30 minutes and I'm in silence and I get into a meditative state in the car, obviously without closing my eyes. But that's some of the best times when I'm like, right, and I literally might right, stop it, and I'll say it out loud, and I tell myself to stop. So what if there's a limiting belief, or if I start thinking, oh, I can't do that, well, that's not going to work, or they're going to think X, Y, and Z. Because even when you're doing the work, you do still get these thoughts. They don't just disappear. It's how you deal with them, and it's the conversations that you have, and just rewiring. Stop it, and then telling myself why I shouldn't be thinking that way and what I need to think instead, and just helping myself, in that way in the car. And yeah, talking to myself all the time. I think I say stop it a lot. I'm like, right, no, thank you. No, I'm not having that thought right now. Off you go. Especially if there's something wanting to creep in to worry about. When the worries come and it's like, oh, has that blood test come back? Has that blood test come back? Has that blood test come back yet? And you're like, right, stop it, because there's nothing I can do about it. And actually, when I was driving yesterday, I was saying out loud to myself, right, you can either worry about it now, or you can worry about it if it actually happens. And then if it doesn't even happen, you've been worried for no reason. And I was like, right, okay, I've been told by myself, but just having that, allowing yourself to have those trails of thoughts so you can, rewire.
Well, it's actually funny because it was your podcast when you first started. I think it's maybe like your second or third episode, and it was about witches. I'm sure it was like
Yeah,
that. And the thing was, you were talking about lunatic and
yeah,
maniac stem from then. Honestly, I loved, guys, everyone listening, if you've not listened to the podcast, go and listen to it because it's so interesting. But it was that it's actually clued me up when I was like, we were almost like conditioned to not talk to ourselves because you would come across as a lunatic.
yeah,
So now
yeah,
it's more like you have to have conversations with yourself. No wonder there's so much mental health problems at the moment because people are not allowing themselves to go inward. People are numbing themselves through Netflix or drinking or drugs or self-hatred or all these different types of things. But when you can actually start to have conversations with yourself, you start to understand yourself more, and you get
yeah,
to unlayer all these, like you say, self-limiting beliefs or whatever it is that's
whatever.
underneath.
Yeah, because if
And
you can't stop yourself, then no one else is going to be able to stop you. And if you're not saying it out loud to yourself, you're probably not saying it out loud to someone else. So those thoughts that we don't want to have and for me, it's mainly worries and overthinking of, oh, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about this.
Mhm.
Now I say it out loud. I'm like, right, why are you worried? You can't do anything about it, and I'll have that conversation with myself and I put the worry to bed, and then I'm done. Whereas my old self, before I started my personal development, I'd spend days and days and days and days and days. I'm worried about that. I'm worried about that. Then it would grow legs, and then the worry would keep going and going and going. And before I know it, 6 months has gone, and I've spent 6 months worrying about things that have never happened.
For no
So
reason.
when I had my health anxiety, I was worried about cancer, brain tumors, God, MS, everything, anything that I would put into my head. I would spend so much time worrying that I had it. Instead of like now, I'm like, right, you've been silly. There's no evidence for it. Stop thinking about it because there's no need to worry because it's not happening right now. There's no, otherwise you're going to worry about it twice if it does happen. And the likelihood of it happening is very small. and that could be for anything. It could be, money, finances, relationships, worrying about a relationship ending when you're actually really happy right now, because you'll probably end it because you're worrying about it.
And all of that stemming, like if you've had troublesome relationships before where they've been great for, a certain amount of time and then they've went to shit, like you're then going to use that experience in every other situation that you're in. And actually, it's funny you've said that, because I was speaking to a friend yesterday. Yeah, yesterday, and she's in a relationship with a new guy, and she's like, it actually is really good, but I'm just kind of waiting for the tables to turn. And I was like, no, stop. You're taking past experience and putting it into future perspective. Like, don't do that. But I think it's also very important to mention that it's so much easier said than done. And it does. And this is the work that we're both talking about. This is the journey that is non-stop, because you're born into this world as like a little diamond, and then there's just loads of shit piled and piled and piled. So you have to unlayer all of that. And it can take a long time, because some people are not willing to look into that yet. Some people are not ready to actually see their wounds. And again, that's okay. Everyone's on their own path. But when you actually start to do the work and you start to have conversations with yourself, and even surround yourself with people who have similar intentions, I think environment is such a big thing. And in a lot of these personal development books, it's like, make sure you're the you're the average of 5 people that you're surrounded by. So I remember thinking, oh crap, like I'm going to have to get rid of all of the people in my life because they're all bringing negativity. But it's not. It's more like surround yourself. So like even talking to you, or talking to V, or talking to my friend Pauline, who does like the singing bowls and stuff, it's surrounding yourself with people like that, as well as friends and family and whatever else. And then I think from there, it's almost, for me now, it almost feels like a ripple effect. Like I'm just waiting for the universe to give me something, and then I respond to that. So yeah, I find environment's also a really, really big thing in making sure that, because then you also feel that you're not going mad.
Just interrupting this episode to remind you to please like, subscribe, drop 5 stars if you enjoy listening to my podcast. It really does mean the world to me. And also to remind you, you can now watch every episode on my YouTube channel. Head to YouTube, type in Joanne WELLth, and I'll see you there. Yeah, because everyone else is also crazy with you.
I'm like, I'm not mad. I like crystals. But I've got friends that like crystals.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to find people. And I have friends who will voice note me, and they will say, I can say this to you because you're not going to think I'm weird, but, and then, I'm like, oh, and I love that, because I'm like, right, yes, that's, they're reaching out to me because and it could be something from like, I've seen this black cat 10 times, like, what does it mean? Or I had a dream and an alien spoke to me, or I keep seeing the number 2. I'm like, yeah, right, let's talk about it. But then they also have their other circle. So like you said, it doesn't mean that you have to cut everyone out, but you want to find those people that have your intention, have your magic, have your energy. But it might be, on the other hand, that you do reflect and look at your friends and think, oh my God, the energy is really low here, once you learn about energy and vibration and magnetism. And I did let go of a few people, because I was like, no, I can feel, once I started to vibrate higher, I could feel when I was with them, I was vibrating lower, and I would leave feeling really anxious and really crappy, like, there's no other way to put it, that I was like, I can't be around these people anymore, because they're making me feel how I don't want to feel. And having that courage as well, then, you don't have to say, get lost and never talking to you again.
I was going to say, it doesn't need to be a or you're a bitch. It's just a matter of, I'm going to see this day.
Less, and eventually, I don't know, you find your new place without having that awkward conversation, because it doesn't need to be. You can't say, oh, your vibration's really low, because, to other people might match their vibration.
100%.
Yeah.
And there's a
finding
no comparison. I think it's very important, and I even say that in my yoga classes. I always say to them, don't look at the person in front of you, don't look at the person next to you. Focus on you. What is your body telling you? Because I was even doing a talk class this morning, and we were doing, I think it was just like a reverse lunge type thing. But people are so quick to like lock the knee out. And I'm like, guys, I say it every time, like keep the knee soft. And I say to people, for some of you, you might have a big bent knee, and that's okay. For some of you, there might be a slight micro bend. For some of you, it's all different. But as long as you're feeling the stretch in the area that you're intending to feel it and there's no pain, you're doing it right, even if it looks different to the person next to you. So just making sure, especially on a spiritual journey, there is no comparison, and taking the advice and the wisdom from people, yes, but implementing that maybe in a different way or maybe in the same way. Obviously, it depends, but yeah.
yeah, I used to struggle with that actually at the start because you I think comparison is very much, we're sort of conditioned to compare, especially as women. It goes back to the witch days of compare, judgment, mistrust. When we were all branded as witches, you would protect yourself. So it would literally be a knock on the door. Is your neighbor a witch? We're going to burn you both if you don't tell us. So of course you're going to go, yes, she's a witch. So then, you're protecting yourself. And that's where this sister wound comes from, and why women struggle with women, and the comparison, the competition, the judgment. It is still within us. And no one's sat us down for 500-600 years to say, these other women are your sisters, work with them and let them help you. And we're not told that. We kind of find that out if we go on a spiritual journey, and we're like, oh, women are actually nice. You learn that again
And I feel
because
like you excel. Like I feel since actually meeting you guys and being part of almost like a sisterhood, it actually helps you evolve quicker and understand more things as well.
yeah, exactly. I was going to say the understanding, because instead of going, oh my God, she's doing this, she's doing that, now I feel really shit. And I used to struggle with that. And especially when I first started my spiritual journey, like, why can't I hear people? Why can't I see people? Why am I not getting this? She does that and she's talking about that, and I must have all this information. And then I was like, right, just chill. I can't remember who I spoke to, and they like, it's your journey. And I literally had to say, right, let go of all of that, because this is my journey. And when things come to me, they will come to me. And just giving myself permission to learn from the women without that comparison. Like, oh my God, tell me about that. How does it feel? Instead of, going home like, I must be able to channel right now and speak to my lives, these things that take time. And then funnily enough, I have a friend who, she always laughs and says, I feel like I'm just behind you. But she asks me things now, like, stop comparing what I do to, like, and I can see myself in her a few years ago, because she's like, how do you do that? I'm not hearing anything. Why can't I connect? I'm like, stop comparing. It will come. Just keep talking, and having that trust instead of that comparison.
And
And
also, like you had said at the very start about, I think when you're comparing, it's almost very poisonous for yourself and not for the other person, if that makes sense. So like
yeah,
when you're doing these things, whether it's self-hatred, and when I say self-hatred, I do say it lightly, but I've got a friend that always says, oh, I'm so fat. And she says it like so nonchalant, like just like, I'm so fat. Now, she is the tiniest person you'll ever see. But it's those words, that along with comparison, because she's looking at somebody else thinking, oh, she looks great. Why do I not look like that? And then you're talking about your spiritual path and your friend's spiritual path as well. As soon as you start comparing, the only person you're hurting is yourself. And that's it. And I think as well, like, because you said, that's what I was going to say when you had said about it's still in us. sometimes we do need someone to like pull it out of us. Like for me still, and I'm thinking back to when we were in Portugal and you did a Reiki on someone and you could see, maybe you actually did Reiki on me and you seen a daffodil. Swear to God, every time I see a daffodil, I'm like, oh, there's a sign. But I was like, oh, when I give Reiki, even when I do it myself or I do it to somebody else, I never really see. It's more like a feeling. And
Yeah.
I remember asking you questions about it, and you just put me so at ease. And it did make me realize, yeah, like we're not the same person. You know, some people feel, some people see, and it's not always going to be the same thing.
Yeah, we all have our own magic, but again, that takes a while to learn. And I don't know if you're the same. Sometimes I'll catch myself having that feeling of, oh, she's doing, I'm like, right, no, stop it. And it's when I talk to myself again of, and it doesn't even have to be spiritual. I think as women, when, you look at someone and go, oh, look at her bum, hair, boobs. And now I will look, and if I feel myself having that, oh, the comparison, I now congratulate. I'm like, oh my God, she's got amazing boobs. Well done. And I switch to a amazing, like send her love, because then I'm not sending any, I'm not giving myself hate. I'm sending her love, and love is bigger than hate, if that makes sense. You know,
100%.
catching that. And when you feel, I guess it's envy or jealousy, but again, that comes down to that witch wound. Quickly send her love, because oh my God, I love XYZ about that woman. You don't have to say it to her. This is all in your head. Like, and then amazing. And then see if you can catch your own reflection and, God, I really like my eyes. And even that sometimes when you tell people, look at your own reflection and say, I love you, or God, I like my boobs. I like my bum. And you can see people cringing, like, oh, I can't say that about myself, but start small. It could be that you love the freckle on your cheek. Like,
Yes. I was just
yeah,
thinking, maybe you love your finger. Like,
yeah, like you love
anything.
the mine was my eye. I love my eye color, and that's where I started. I love my brown eyes. I love my eyes.
I like my eyes, and I think my hair. My hair has always just been thick and grows really fast. So I'm like,
Start small, a freckle, your birthmark, and then eventually you'll look at yourself and go, actually, I like my smile, I like my teeth, I like my cheeks, I like my face, I like my hair, you know. And when you find yourself not doing that because you look at someone else and go, oh God, she's got gorgeous, send it like, I love that, amazing, she's got this and I've got this, and wow, it's
also comes from like a lack mentality. And I think when you can start to understand vibration and you can start to understand manifestation, and not in a woo-woo sense, but in an actual, I mean, law of vibration is a thing. The law of vibration is like the law of gravity. It's just not as mainstream as gravity, obviously, but law of vibration is an actual thing. And what you're emitting, you're going to get back. So I think when you can understand that and you can implement that into life, becoming aware, changing stories, noticing the difference, when you then see somebody who maybe has the figure of your dreams, like I almost use it as like a picture. Like I'm like, okay, oh my gosh, like say it's an outfit, someone walks past, oh my gosh, I love that outfit. I then know that I can have that outfit if I want it, because all I need to do is work on myself and whatever it is that I'm trying to manifest. Whereas when you feel like that's so far away from you, it's almost like jealousy hits because you're like, well, I can't have that, so she shouldn't have that. When
yeah,
actual fact, you can have that. And you have no idea what she's done to be able to get that, Like there's so many backstories to, I mean, I've got a friend a girl that I know who got a boob job. I mean, she's beautiful, but she got a boob job because her mum had cancer, and so I think there was like a risk of it coming in her because she had the gene. So do you know that way a lot of girls would look and be like, oh, she's beautiful and she's got fake boobs, but you have no idea what the story is behind that. So again, like it comes down to being kind and compassionate to yourself and to others. And there's one thing that I always use, whether it's emotions or whether you're in a yoga pose, and it's the acronym RAIN, which is recognize, allow, I'm like trying to remember, investigate, and nurture. So recognize, so for example, if you've seen somebody who you're feeling a little bit jealous, and it's also important that you admit to yourself you're feeling jealous. Because so many of us can be like, oh no, I'm not a jealous person. It's like, it's not bad to be angry. It's not bad to be jealous. It's not bad to be agitated or frustrated. This is your body giving you feedback. It's saying, okay, something's out of alignment. Let's get back into alignment. So, first of all, recognize what it is that you're feeling. Allow it to be there without having to try and shovel it back down. Investigate it. So, why am I feeling this way? What is it that's triggered this response in myself? And kind of dig a bit deep into that and then nurture that. Okay, that's okay. I'm feeling that way. That stemmed from this childhood wound. I can now choose to let go of that wound, which means I can now choose to let go of the emotion attached to what it is that's just happened. And it's like this evolution that starts to evolve. And then when you start to do that over time, you start to just feel and see all these massive pivotal shifts. And the same works in a yoga pose. And you'll know it as best as anyone because you obviously teach yoga. If someone's in pigeon and they've got really tight hips, recognize you're obviously feeling very agitated, thinking, get me out of this pose.
Yeah.
Investigate it. Why am I feeling this way? Because I'm too deep in pigeon. Okay, well, back up off it. Investigation. What can I do to make this a little bit more comfortable? Maybe I could do it on my back rather than being in the full pose. And nurture. Be kind to yourself. Stop giving yourself a hard time.
I love that. I'm going to use that. And all of that just comes back to keeping the vibration high. Because if you don't do those things, the vibration is low. And then a nice way for vibration is just think of feeling. So if you're looking at someone, you're like, oh God, she's got this, I haven't got it. Even when I'm saying that, slumping in my chair, I'm getting low physically, just acting it out. So slumping in my chair, I'm like, oh, and then you just feel low and you feel like crap and you are low. Whereas instead of doing all, recognizing it, nurturing it, you're feeling it, you're acknowledging it, and you can keeping the vibration high. So sitting back up tall now because I'm like, right, okay, I feel this way because when I was 13, that boy told me I was ugly in the canteen at school, and it really actually hurt my feelings. So now I'm still in that hangover, even though it was 30 years ago, but you're acknowledging it, you can see where it's come from, and then no, I'm not ugly. I was 13 at the time, and just allowing yourself to just brush it off and stay nice and tall, stay proud.
Some people don't know that that's why they're feeling that way.
Yeah,
They,
yeah,
and I think again, like the amount of friends I have, I speak about spiritual stuff. Not, and I don't think like necessarily quite like I don't like using the word spiritual as like this much, but I mean even on a self-discovery sense or in a personal development sense, like when you can start recognizing where your habits and your behaviors are coming from, it's that place that you want to work on. Whereas people are trying to work on the superficial part, Oh, like using your example, this boy told me I was ugly when I was 10. I'm now carrying that now, so I'm getting every bit of work done, and I'm not saying getting work done is bad, but is it making you happy? Is it making you truly happy? Because see, if it's not, there's a deeper layer to that, and it's going deeper to find that root core emotion or situation or problem, whatever it is, and removing that as opposed to just working on, oh, I feel ugly, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
yeah, exactly. And I always use the analogy of, because you said root cause, the plants, when a plant needs attention, it's got brown leaves. I'm actually looking at my plant here now, but I think it's died. So this one has it. I've got my nice peace lily in the kitchen. So when that looks a bit dry,
You're my favorite. Peace lily's my favorite.
but I'll spray her, I water the root, I don't just cut her leaves off and cut the brown off. I get into the root, I water her, put her in the sunlight, give her a bit of attention that way. And that's exactly the same as us. We need to water the root, look after the root. We can chop and pick and cut and slice and whatever we do. If we haven't looked after that root, everything, the thoughts and feelings are still going to be there. So it is a journey, and I think we've covered all parts of the journey there. But I think it's nice just to hear conversations of experience, and everyone's different. Your journey is different than mine. My journey is different than the woman listening to this, or the woman just at the start of her journey now. We'll all go on different paths, but the nice thing is we will cross and meet in the middle. And that's another thing we need to remember, going back to the sisterhood. Use the other women around you. You know, we're all in this together at the end of the day. We're all here now for a reason. We've all chosen to be here, whether you're spiritual or not. We're all here now. We all have a reason to be here. So let's work together, because there's so much going on in the world right now as well. Thinking about, why am I here now? What can I do? Obviously, we can't save the whole world.
But it's also talking about like Pluto going into Aquarius. I mean, I don't know the whole ins and outs of that, but what I do know is there is a major shift, and it is all about being authentically you. So like you say, why am I here? I'm here to shine my light. Okay, what is my light?
Yeah, finding that. And I like to give homework. You've probably heard on the other podcast, the soul work. After this, when you finish listening to this, just take a moment and just, reflect where you're at. Are you on your spiritual journey? Are you looking to start? And I feel like it starts with crystals. Are you being drawn to that? And just see if you can just sit with it and just set yourself a little, path of, where am I going? And see what comes out to you. See if your purpose or your light, or, it might be that you need to shine your light for other women like we're doing, or as a mother, or through your job. And just having a moment today after this just to sit and see what comes up for you.
And even just getting into conversations, like message Joe, you can message me, I'm sure Joe will put my Instagram, and just like have conversations, because the more conversations you have, the more you learn, and the more you're able to grow and evolve. And again, it might be crystals, it might be moving your body in one way or another, whether it's like yoga or tai chi or dance, it might be meditating, it could be going a meditative walk, it could be lying with your dog and having a cup of tea. Like, find things that bring you joy and have conversations and learn, because the people who are the happiest, I actually put a post up, it wasn't my post, it was like shared, but it was like, the happiest people don't talk about each other, like they don't badmouth people, they are out in nature as much as they can. I can't even remember all the other ones, but there was just so much, and it was just simple things that you can implement into your day that's going to give you a more joyful state of living, which at the end of the day, I'm sure we all want.
Yeah, we do. And like I said, there's so much going on in the world. We need to look after our little worlds, make them nice and joyful. Yeah, tiny. Thank you so much, Jen. I really enjoyed that conversation.
Thank you. So did I. I feel like we were like, it'll be half an hour. Oh no. I swear I could just keep talking. That's the thing. You need to cut me off.
So much everyone for listening, and like Jen said, reach out if you have any questions, no matter how big, small, silly you think they are. We're all, we're here for it. And yeah, thank you so much. I'll be back next week.
Bye guys, thank you so much.